Hey, Edgar community, we are back with another community spotlight, and we are super excited to be joined by Damon today. Damon is going to be a wealth of knowledge about something that we haven't talked very much about in these user spotlights, which is our smaller plan, Eddie. So if you are a small business owner or a solopreneur yourself, we are going to dive deep into how a social media automation tool and how this plan is situated perfectly for you. So I'm going to pass it over to Damon to start, and he's going to explain a little bit about who he is and what he does, and then we'll jump into the good stuff. Damon, go right ahead.
Hey, thanks, Megan. I love the talk show narrative here. I like the flow and the energy. So my name is Damon Brown. I'm based in Las Vegas, and my background is journalism. Longtime journalist for the New York Post, for Playboy magazine, a lot of those big guys. About 7-8 years ago, I became a solopreneur, so entrepreneur, twice over. Both bootstrapped both companies within the course of 2 years. At the same time, I became a stay-at-home dad with my first son. So crazy experience. The second app called Cuddler, Cuddlr, got really popular. It was one of the most popular apps of 2014. So you can do a Google search on it, you'll find all kinds of crazy stuff. So we're on the late night talk shows and all that stuff. And we ended up selling the company, and it was bootstrapped. So it ended up being a really interesting acquisition. And now I'm helping other people start their businesses. I've spoken at the main TED conference and a couple of the TEDx's, and really trying to help what I call non-traditional entrepreneurs. So people who are solopreneurs, people who are side hustlers, people like myself who have 2 kids. So I have 2 little kids at home. You might hear them in the background. And so how you can build amazing stuff without sacrificing your life. And my latest book is called Bring Your Worth, Level Up Your Creative Power, Value, and Service to the World. And that's a follow-up to the previous book, which is the bestseller, The Bite-Sized Entrepreneur. And so you can kind of see that same argument happening. And thanks for having me. And I think Edgar is kind of part of my mission plan. So we can talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. So it sounds like you have a ton of experience around what it takes to take something from nothing and build a community online who is really attached to kind of your mission for your business. So can you talk a little bit about how your social media presence has helped in all these companies you've built, as well as even your own personal branding around your books and stuff, and why you find
Yeah.
social media important for all of these different projects?
Yeah, it's interesting. I did a book about 6 years ago with TED. They had TED books at the time. I think they still do, but it was big at the time. And it was called Our Virtual Shadow: Why We're Obsessed with Documenting Our Lives Online. And so it was kind of this research thing that I had done where I was like, okay, why are we posting on social media so much? And so my view is very agnostic. That's the right word, where it's like whatever gets you to where you need to be. It doesn't matter. For some people, it's social media. Until the recent challenges, most of my coaching clients, they would find me through me doing public speaking. And so them personally meeting me and hearing one of my talks or coming to one of my book signings, then that would be the beginning of the relationship. Obviously, a lot of stuff's going on where we can't necessarily do that. So social media is kind of changing. It's the power dynamic a little bit. What I find interesting about social media is probably two big things. The first thing is that there's always 2 conversations going on. So I've led conferences, I've spoken at a lot of conferences, like I said, and I always tell people to be sure and check things online, because as I'm speaking or as a panel speaking, there's a whole parallel conversation, ideally with a hashtag or whatever, that's happening, and you need to have both of the conversations to be engaged. It's the same thing with entrepreneurs and creatives, which are a lot of people that I end up coaching. So you need to be totally engaged in some way. Edgar actually helps with this, and we can get into this later, as far as with me staying engaged without it dominating my time. Like I said, I have 2 kids. They're both under 6. And so it's like, and they're both very healthy and very busy. And so I don't have a whole lot of time to necessarily curate my social media feed as someone would, even me 10 years ago before I was married and had kids and all that stuff. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that it allows people to engage how they feel comfortable engaging. And so I have coaching clients now all around the world, which I'm very thankful for. And so some of us like speak remotely, obviously a lot, not more now, on Skype, on Zoom, on FaceTime. But for some people, they actually want to meet in person. And so once I started getting more into social media, I started working with MeetEdgar, I want to say about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. It enabled me to engage with people who didn't necessarily want to meet in person. I have coaching clients here in Las Vegas who I've never met in person, but their dynamic works with the digital age. it's like that's what they're on. And that's fine with me. We'll engage however we engage. And so the social media part allows me to engage with people that don't want to necessarily spend 2 hours having a coffee at the local coffee shop, which is more my speed. And so it enables me to actually engage with people with where they are, as they say.
Yeah, I love this idea of making sure you're showing up where and how your community wants to consume your content and meet you, not just assume that everyone is going to have the same preferences that you do. And social media is a great way to not only limit the location that you could meet people in, but make sure that you're reaching people all over the world who could use your products or services. So that's really
Yeah, the world aspect is a really big part too.
yeah.
And I've had coaching clients in Africa, some in Western Europe, and it's like it's amazing how the reach is. And some of them got to know me through social media and continue to get to know me through social media. And so, especially as an author too, there's so many different levels that it impacts. Yeah.
Yeah, these free platforms really do allow you to, like we said, make sure you're reaching people all over the world. So it's a really cool thing. And I would love for you to go a little bit deeper into this idea that you don't want social media to run your life, and you don't want to necessarily spend the majority of your time marketing on just content creation for social media and posting on social media, because there's a lot of other things in your business that can move the needle forward and move your business
Right.
in the direction you want it to go. So when you were looking for social media automation tools, what were some of the features that really attracted you as a single solopreneur and as someone who is building a brand online yourself? What attracted you to MeetEdgar over some other possibilities?
Yeah. And I've been on many of the different platforms. I've been in my business for a couple decades, so I've seen the maturation going back to MySpace, and so I'm sensitive to those types of details. I used to be a tech writer, and so it's like so I'm really sensitive to that idea. Um, and so there's a couple of criteria. The first one is it being financially viable, not valuable, but viable. Sorry, my New Jersey accent's coming out, but viable. And so as far as whatever I was putting into it, I was going to get it out of it. As I used to say when I lived in Silicon Valley, 10xing it. And so if I was going to pay for a service, then I would make sure that the returns match whatever I was giving in or made it higher. Otherwise, it just doesn't make any sense. The second part is having the flexibility of automation. And I noticed that you said automated platform. Not all platforms are automated. And I realized that for me to connect with again, my background is words. So the words that I use are really important. And so for me to connect with my audience in the way that I want to connect with them with the right word choice within, now it's 240, but the 240, character limit or whatever, whatever, I'm sorry, 280 for Twitter, whatever that limit is. Or I left Facebook about 6 months ago, but when I was on Facebook and all the details I give, I'm really active on LinkedIn, particularly now. And so all the LinkedIn details, all those different granular things, even Instagram now, being able to curate that on a micro level if I wanted to. I have a column with Inc. magazine, which is actually, we can get into that, but that was one of the main reasons that I got onto MeetEdgar, was to continue to get my column out there. So it'll be my 5th anniversary of the column this summer. I've done, I think I'm approaching 500 columns. I might have hit it already. And so I have like 500 columns that are all online that I want to give to the audience. And of course, it's free to them. And so finding some way to get that content to them, even if it's a column that I wrote in September of 2017 that might be relative to a person I'm coaching in Germany, and it happens to hit them at that moment on Twitter. And that's happened all the time where people are like, I loved your latest column. And I'm like, great, thank you. And then I realized it's a column from like 4.5 years ago. But Edgar has allowed me to kind of have that reach, and to use that content and have what we would call like the long tail, or what we call evergreen content. There's, depending on the industry, there's different terms for it, but it's basically saying you're creating something and then having not necessarily just multiple income streams, but multiple levels of impact with it. And so those are my 2 criteria. If I was going to pay for it, make sure it's financially viable. There you go again, viable. Some of the free services, I realized why they were free, and it's just like they don't really have that level. Number 2 is to be able to automate it, which I think some people take for granted. I don't, because I was on, you name one of the major platforms as far as getting the content out there. I've been on it probably. And so it's like, that's not a native thing. The third thing, which I think is important, and one of the reasons why I've been working with MeetEdgar, is the ability to curate the content and then have it set up like way back so that it's automatically going out. What I found with some of the other services is that you can do that, but you might be able to do that with like 20 posts or like 30 posts. I think my MeetEdgar account currently has like 100 of my columns in there, and I don't have to sweat. Like, there's this amazing column I did about Oprah Winfrey, or when I interviewed Adam Grant last year, who was a big in the thought leader space, and I don't have to worry about that column being like atrophy, there being atrophy and me forgetting about it. In other words, while I'm talking to you, MeetEdgar is actually working and pushing out a column, I think literally as we speak. And so it's like, to be able to have that, that's kind of a peace of mind. So hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're really excited to hear that that evergreen function that is built into MeetEdgar is still making sure that the articles you've written 4 years ago are driving traffic to your site, position you as an expert in your industry. And I think you guys out there in the MeetEdgar community, this is something we hear a lot of. I'm afraid to repeat my content. I'm afraid that it's going to annoy people if I send the same stuff out. But truly take it from Damon here, that it's going to hit someone at the right time and resonate with the messaging they need to hear then. And it could be something they've seen before, or remembering you're always gaining new followers. So you need to make sure you're offering your most valuable information up to everyone that you're gaining. So that's really
Absolutely.
that's working for you. So there is something you touched on that I would love for you to dive a little deeper on, and that's this idea that you left Facebook, you said, and that you're focusing mostly on Twitter and LinkedIn. And it's a concept that we talk about a lot, that you don't need to be everywhere. You need to be where you know your community wants to engage with you the most. And this is actually one of the reasons that Eddie, our $19 a month plan, exists, because we know that as a small business owner, you don't necessarily need the 25 connections that our larger plan offers. So can you talk us through a little bit about your decision-making process not to be on Facebook, and why you find the other networks are working well for you still?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So if you're interested in the Inc. column, because I was just talking about it, it's at inkdamonbrown.com, or you can follow me, of course, on social media at Brown Damon on all the major platforms, except for Facebook. So to start with the Facebook part, and I'll make it really brief, I've actually written columns about it. So ironically, you can go to inkdamonbrown.com and look up Facebook, and you'll be able to find my Facebook column on it. I left in first week of December in 2019. So at this point, about 4 or 5 months ago. And there were two things. Number one is the time suck factor, which I know that y'all have done some newsletters about using that term, which is something that MeetEdgar, and specifically, like you said, Eddie, helps a lot with. I found that happening with Facebook more and more. And so even with like the other challenges, big obvious challenges that have been happening with Facebook over the last 3 or 4 years, ethically and otherwise, as far as privacy, it was just the amount of time that Facebook, I felt like, was demanding, and the return wasn't there. The second part of it, which was pure business, is that I wasn't actually reaching my audiences as much as I used to. So I've written 24 books. My last book came out about a year ago. My first major book came out in 2008. And when I did that, that was around the time I got into Facebook. I just moved to Silicon Valley. It was just a wonderful, interesting, intense time. And I was having book launches all across the country, and I've lived all across the country. So in Jersey, I used to live in New Orleans, went to school in Chicago. So I had launched there. It was great. It's a great kind of homecoming. Facebook ended up being the organizer for all that. And so it's like, hey, I'm going to be in New Orleans this week in August, very hot time. I'm going to be there this week in August, come through, and people would respond on Facebook. When my latest book came out, Bring Your Worth, that was February of 2019, Facebook was just like irrelevant. Because I post something on Facebook, including the columns or whatever, and I'd get like 5 responses, including like a thumbs up, which didn't exist back in 2008. And what happened over those years, and there's literally books about it, what happened over the years is that Facebook started to charge more to access the same audiences you had before. And so it became more of an ad driven model because Facebook is free. And so they started charging the creators to say, if you want to reach 50,000 people, Damon, then just give us $5. So you can do that for a day. I played around with that with some of my previous books before Bring Your Worth, and there were no results. So that's the really short version of it. Again, I've written columns about it. But number one, the time sucked where I felt like it kept demanding more time without the results. And number two, financially, it just didn't make any sense because I wasn't reaching the audience that I needed. Twitter, LinkedIn, and to a lesser extent, Instagram, which ironically is owned by Facebook, they all did like a better job as far as allowing me to curate my audiences. I don't mind paying money for that. I paid money for all three of those services, but I want to see results for that. I don't want to feel like that my audience is being held hostage from me. And I felt that way with Facebook. Getting to the Eddie program, it ended up working out really well because so much of the stuff that I do is personally curated. And what I mean by that is, I think you said 25 social media connections. I don't think I have that in my lifetime. You know what I mean? I know people that do though, and it's not a judgment. That's it's not me. It's not my business. So what I tend to do, and you said it earlier, is I find out where my audience wants to engage, and I make sure that I'm there. The people that I engage with, a lot of them left Facebook before I did. You know, the people I want to engage with maybe look at Facebook as a way to look at their kids or not their kids, but they're old enough, their kids, but like their relatives and more like the social part of social media as opposed to the business part. When I end up working with people, my main thing is helping them find a way to make their impact on the world without sacrificing their life. That's it. And so the people that I talk with have complex lives. They have older parents to take care of. They have young kids just like me. They're underrepresented or underfunded communities, and the list goes on and on. And so their time is the most valuable thing. So I need to engage with them wherever they are. If they actually need my help, they probably have some type of roadblock they're dealing with. And some of it might be time management. So Facebook might not be the place to engage them, but LinkedIn might be. And so again, I could talk much more on this, but the basic idea is that me engaging with where my audience is my primary concern. And so my main focus is and intention is service. So if I'm on Facebook and I'm spending, the equivalent of a day on Facebook every week, 8 hours, and it's not getting the results as far as reaching the people that I need to reach, and therefore I can't serve them, then I'm going to leave the platform. And I think that's a decision that all of us as business owners or creators, kind of need to make. It's not possible to be on all platforms. I guess I'll put it like that. Unless you have a team, I do not. So
I love that kind of decision-making process you just walked us through. And this is truly the importance of knowing who your audience persona is and where they hang out, because sometimes
yes.
It could be quite opposite, that you have a presence on Facebook and you get a lot of engagement, but perhaps LinkedIn is not going to be a place people are finding your content and consuming it. So really making sure you're paying attention to why you're on each platform and following through kind of the depth that Damon gave on how he actually gave weight to that decision, I think is a really cool process that we should all kind of sit down and mull over and think about. Well, you have been such a wealth of information here, and I think our community has some really cool tips to take away. And I would just love you to leave us with one more thought, either about automating and tools or about marketing in general, that you think would be really helpful for other small business owners and solopreneurs out there.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. I think the biggest thing is to make sure that you're true to yourself and your business. My theory, and I talk about this in my books too, is that you and your business or whatever you're creating for the world, it's like a Venn diagram where you're trying to get them to overlap. And that, at least for me and the people that I work with, that's the main intention. And so you're not going to see me online like Gary Vaynerchuk, like super hype and jumping around. I love Gary Vaynerchuk. It's just our personalities are complete opposite. The way I talk right now, you get any of my audiobooks, this is what my voice sounds like. Yeah, I'm coaching, this is what my voice sounds like. So I'm not trying to put on a persona because I feel like that's what sells or that's what attracts customers. And in fact, if you end up attracting a customer, I believe, based on that false pretense, then either you're going to be disappointed because you'll be tired from putting up that persona, or the customer will be disappointed because you're not living up to who you really are. And so that all ties, I believe, to social media, where you engage with me or see my stuff on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and occasionally on Instagram, and it's the same flavor, and so that's one of the benefits of working with MeetEdgar, is to be able to say, I'm going to take my time, and I do my ink column probably, but on average, like once or twice a week. So I have a new column coming out. I'll go ahead and curate however I want to present the column to my audience on those 3 platforms. Going with that, and it's like, that allows me to be my best exact self, the same one that you're getting right now, as opposed to me being with my kids or a million other things going on, and me trying to pull out Twitter and then do a quick tweet because my column went live. So not looking at automation as a luxury or something that, that you have to put up money to afford, but looking at like the opposite way of saying, automation allows you to really think about how you want to curate that conversation, or begin the conversation, I should say, because you can't go back and forth. Begin the conversation with the people that you want to serve and that you want to connect with. And automation allows you to really be thoughtful about how you start that conversation. So that's what it does for me. I've tried being in a rush for things and shooting out social media things, and that's just not my personality. It's not my speed. And in fact, there ends up being a disengagement that happens because I feel like my audience can tell that I'm in a rush and I'm just trying to get it out. MeetEdgar allows me to go ahead and curate that conversation, begin the conversation better, so that I'm using the exact words and images and so forth that makes my audience feel like they're part of a community.
Yeah, I love that so much. Your followers are smart. They can tell when you have intent behind your posts versus if it's just something you feel like you have to have a post out there just to have it out there.
Especially if you're trying to sell something, or, you're trying to make money on the latest column and all that. And yeah, that was actually literally the nature of my latest book, is basically saying that, people can see that. So if you assume that people can see that, then make sure that you're authentic. I hate that word because it's been overused, but I can't think of a better word. Make sure you're authentic in how you engage. And then you also have I'm not a spring chicken, so you have the younger folks coming in too, who are even more savvy than myself and people of my generation. So it's like, all right, well, let's keep it 100% real throughout. And I think automation allows me, I should say, and I think most people to figure out how they're engaging, to be thoughtful about it and make sure they're being their true self. And there's times where there's past tweets, whatever that I was going to send out that I'm deleting later. Not that they were controversial, it's just actually had time to mull it over, or it didn't fit the theme. And especially right now in 2020, there's so many things that are changing so rapidly. People need authenticity. Like they're not gonna go for anything fake. So.
I 100% agree with you. So guys, take these kind of words to heart and make sure that you're putting intent behind every post you put into your library, batching your content through a lens that you're providing value at all times, and you have a reason to send those posts out. So we really appreciate all these tips, and we'd love to hear from you guys out there what you loved, what items you're going to actually take into action in your week today. So leave it in the comments below and give this video a like. And Damon, thank you so much for all of your expertise today.
Thanks for having me. Hope to see you guys online.